Love is terrifying. Like, love is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. It's painful, it's awful, it's hard to tell the difference between what is pain and what is love and what is fear in our bodies. Fear and anxiety and love all feel like the same thing. It feels like a knot in your stomach. It feels like the sweats. It feels like you're having a panic attack, like you can't breathe, like your chest is tight, like your heart is pounding out of your head, like you're gonna pass out. It's terrible. I don't know why anybody would do it. I haven't been in love much. I've been to more funerals than I have been to weddings. And as you can tell, not really doing too good in the love department as of lately, but I do have this sort of morbid fascination with love. I watch a lot of romantic movies. I do. Most people think I don't because I don't really enjoy like rom-coms, but I love a romantic movie. I love when one of the people in the relationship dies, or when the lovers are ripped apart, or a tragic end to this fantastic love story. I love being a pile of snot and tears at the end of the movie. Why? I don't know. I don't know. My wires are crossed. I don't know. There's a genre that I love called romantic horror. And most of the movies that are some of my favorites kind of fall into this category. Movies like Crimson Peak, Let the Right One In, Thirst, The Hunger, all of those are some of my favorite romantic horror movies. Usually when they talk about romance movies, they talk about like When Harry Met Sally, or like How to Lose a Guy in 30 Days, but like those movies suck. Ew, gross. Blech. I'm here to talk about one of my favorite romantic horror movies of all time, Bones and All. Directed by Luca Guadagnino, Bones and All is a romantic horror drama movie based on the novel by Camille D'Anglis. It follows Maureen, a young woman with a dark secret, as she embarks on a journey of self-discovery and love, and also cannibalism. Released in 2022 after Guadagnino's first foray into horror with 2018's Suspiria, it was kind of an underwhelming movie in the box office, unfortunately. Today, we're gonna dive deep into the film. We're gonna go into its themes, into its characters, and why it's one of my favorite films and one of the most hauntingly beautiful horror romance movies of all time. Maureen, a teenager, is abandoned by her father after her cannibalistic urges lead her to a horrifying accident at a sleepover. She sets out on a cross-country journey to find her origins and try to find why she's afflicted with the urge to eat other people. And she meets other people called eaters who are just like her, including the enigmatic Lee. Maureen catches the attention of another eater named Sully, who she rejects, and he responds violently towards her. Later, Maureen and Lee learn to live as eaters. Together, they try to build a normal life until Sully finds them again. That's the basic kind of plot of the movie. Not too spoilery, but we'll get into it. It's a mix of genres, a mix of romance, horror, and coming of age, with Guadagnino's signature visual style. The style of the movie borrows a lot from what is called like a road movie. It shows a lot of the wide expanses of the American Midwest. It's filmed beautifully by cinematographer Arseny Khachaturian. Maureen's cannibalism is largely a metaphor for desire, for the way that wanting to be loved can feel like a never-ending hunger. Her father rejects her and leaves her, and her mother is found to be living a life in an asylum, being held for her cannibalistic tendencies. Maureen longs to be loved, loved completely, bones and all. To be consumed by someone, or really to consume someone else. The desire to be loved sometimes can feel like an endless void that can't be filled, and no matter how much you consume love, you'll always be hungry again. Now, there are going to be people that get this and people that don't. And when this movie came out, audiences were largely confused about whether or not this movie was a horror movie or a romantic movie. The romance audiences didn't really jive with it, and the horror audiences also really didn't jive with it. But honestly, it's both. Because what's more terrifying than the search to be loved? The search to be loved for exactly who you are. Flaws in everything. The idea of love in modern culture is one of unachievable perfection. Usually it's two people who are in perfect shape, financially stable, and with all their emotional problems solved, and then you can find love. If not, then you might be labeled as, I don't know, a bad person who came into a relationship with flaws and expected somebody to love you instead of working on yourself beforehand. It's hard to come to another person as a flawed person, hoping to them that they accept you as you are. What if you have a disorder or a sickness or some sort of compulsion? What if you're still in the process of healing from your childhood or your past? Is it irresponsible to come to somebody and ask them to love you, to expect them to love you as you are? What if you have a condition that makes you behave in a way that's horrific? What if it makes you do disgusting things, deplorable things, awful things? How do you ask to be loved? Do you deserve it? Do you deserve to be loved? What if you eat other people? Do you still deserve to be loved? The film explores the pain of being loved, the desire to belong, the pain of rejection, the pain of wanting to be loved when you feel like an outcast. For some, this is an impossible hurdle. Even though we live in a society where we have access to apps and dating websites, finding love feels more impossible than ever. It's somehow like our world has gotten bigger and bigger, but also emptier at the same time. Trying to find somebody who matches your freak has become like a joke, right? We're dealing with what academics are calling the Great Loneliness Epidemic. From 2003 to 2023, in-person socialization went down 20%. And among unmarried men and people under 25, that decline was down 35%. The rate of socialization has been steadily declining for decades, and we're more alone than ever. I experienced this firsthand as a person who's neurodivergent and what I believe my doctor termed as a fucking weirdo. I haven't really been able to find anybody in my life. I've been single for 10 years now. I know. Despite having access to anyone, anywhere in the world, the isolation in our society, particularly my society, American society, is pronounced. We don't have third places or really tight-knit communities. Gone are the days of the Elk Lodge or the bowling league or the Bible study group. We now really only have social media, Discord, YouTube. Connecting with people is hard. And it's especially hard if you're kind of a fucking weirdo like me. It's hard to be vulnerable. How can you expect someone to love you bones and all? The relationship between Maureen and Lee is seen as a beacon of hope in this dark world. It's so unique that the two of them found each other. Not only are they afflicted with the same condition, but they also genuinely love each other. It's rare in this movie, but also rare in real life. If you're part of a marginalized community, trying to find someone who understands you and who also loves you in return seems nearly impossible. In 2019, an Australian show called Love on the Spectrum premiered. The premise of the show is a typical dating setup where singles meet with like matchmakers or dating coaches and they hope to make a love match with somebody else. But on this show, all the singles are autistic. I was like obsessed with this show when people were watching Tiger King. I was only watching Love on the Spectrum, and I've watched like all the seasons of the Australian one, but I've also watched like the American ones, and I'm obsessed with it. What really struck me though about the show was how marginalized people were, how infantilized people were. Many of the autistic people were treated as if they were not human beings or adults. Many of them voiced frustration about how their family and community treated them like children without sexual or romantic desire, keeping them isolated. And we do this all the time. People with disabilities are often treated like they don't have the same feelings as everyone else. And that treatment leads to extreme feelings of loneliness and isolation in their community. The cannibalism can also be seen as a compulsion similar to any other kind of biological addiction, like drug or alcohol abuse. The eaters live on the margins of society. They're often squatters, or they live in campers, or they're hitchhikers. Their lifestyles do not breed stability, like people who are often struggling with drug addiction, chemical dependency, or things like that. Because of their need constantly to get another victim, even if they are willing to change their lives, there's only so long that they can go without it. Maureen and Lee try to build a life inside the context of their addiction and trying to build a life in recovery. You could see them very good as like a metaphor for people who are trying to live with addiction. The desire to eat people might be a lifelong condition, but they decide to learn to live with it, to accept it, to cope with it, and be happy regardless. People that are struggling with addiction issues still deserve to be happy, even if society treats them as though they're less than. They still deserve love, don't they? Maureen, played by Taylor Russell, is torn between her humanity and her monstrous instincts. Maureen is abandoned by her father after the incident where she attacks another girl at a slumber party. Her and her father, they live like a transient lifestyle, moving whenever anybody finds out about her condition. Unfortunately, Maureen's father has had enough of this lifestyle and leaves her. He leaves, though, a tape behind, a recording of everything that he knows about her condition. She decides to take a bus to find her mother, who she inherited her condition from. On the way, Maureen meets Sully, another eater, who tells her that his one rule is to never eat another eater. Maureen runs from Sully after witnessing his brutality firsthand. When Maureen meets Lee, she finds a kindred spirit and begins to allow herself to open up. They share the same condition, but they also start to fall in love. Maureen does not feel safe with other eaters, not like how she feels with Lee. Once she finds her mother, the only other female eater in the movie, by the way, Maureen is horrified. Her mother is in an institution to prevent herself from eating and has even resorted to eating off her own hands. Maureen sees herself in her mother, her own potential future. Maureen closes herself back off again from the world and runs away from Lee. She is unfortunately found by Sully, who has been, unbeknownst to her and Lee, been following them across the country. Maureen finds Lee again after running away from Sully, and they decide to live together and build a new life. Unfortunately, Sully tracks them down, and Maureen is left alone again at the end of the film. The impact of abandonment can't really be understated in this movie. There's this theory of attachment styles in people. The attachment styles are avoidant, anxious, disorganized, preoccupied, and secure. Secure attachment is like the goal, defined as being a style that develops when children have consistent caregivers who meet their needs. People with this style tend to be confident, trusting, and open to communication. These are all the different ways in which we connect in relationships. There's different styles of attachment that we have in relationships, romantic or otherwise. Maureen is marked by her abandonment from her family and seeks the companionship of someone else. Fortunately, she does meet Lee, but in another situation, she could be vulnerable to a person like Sully, whose possessive and controlling treatment of her would make her entirely susceptible to someone who sees her position and takes advantage of her. Maureen has sort of an anxious attachment style, which is characterized by an intense fear of abandonment and a strong need for reassurance and support. Maureen clings to people like Lee and her father, but when she is confronted by the state of her mother, she rejects Lee for the fear that her condition makes her a monster. This push-pull is common in people with anxious attachment styles, either being too attached or being unattached. And despite looking like she's doing the exact opposite of what she really wants, this is how she deals with the anxiety of her situation. Love is terrifying, and some of us deal with that fear not by staying, but by fleeing. Lee is played by Timothée Chalamet. He's a complex character who embodies both vulnerability and also danger. He meets Maureen and immediately discovers that she's an eater. The eaters can sort of smell each other. That's how they can tell that they're all eaters. He eats a man who is harassing a grocery store worker, and Lee and Maureen steal his car. Lee refuses to open up to Maureen about his past. Once they return to Lee's home of Kentucky, though, they meet up with Lee's younger sister, Kayla, who reveals that Lee actually killed their abusive father. Later, it's revealed that Lee's father was also an eater and tried to attack him and his sister. Once Lee killed him, he ate him, and he felt really good doing it. And he feels guilty for enjoying doing so. Lee is comfortable with violence, despite his fear to open up into letting Maureen into his world. In Lee's case, the enjoyment that he received from eating his father can also be seen as the fulfillment of the desire that he had to be loved by his father. By consuming him, his father then becomes a part of him. He didn't receive the love that he wanted from his father, but he did get something else in the end. He's sort of like a mirror to Maureen and her struggles and her desires. Sully, played by Mark Rylance, is an eerie and unsettling figure who represents the darker side of Maureen's world. Sully is obsessed with her, and when he is twice rejected, he does not handle it very well and grows more and more violent towards her. He has no real interest in Maureen's journey, but just sort of having her, possessing her. Sully wants to have a companion, somebody else who is an eater just like him, somebody who understands him. But he does everything to drive Maureen away. When Sully attacks Lee and Maureen in the end, it's revealed that while following them, he ate Lee's sister and added her hair to his long braid of hair that he keeps of all of his victims. Sully shows the possibility of what happens when people isolate themselves from others, a life without love or companionship or respect. When he does find an object of affection, he obsesses over her, unable to recognize her own identity. Unlike Lee, who allows Maureen the space that she needs to process her feelings, accepting her again when she wants, and then they reunite. Guadagnino said in an interview about his characters, "The young characters resist it, and they struggle, and they challenge one another and themselves with the moral questions of being what they are and trying to escape what they are. The adults, they are forgetting that moral struggle they had, and they're becoming more naughty and cynical about who they are." One of the things that I love about Guadagnino's movies is the blend of genres. Like, he's so adept at blending all these different elements into something that almost like is genre-less, or it defies genre. At the core of the film is a love story, a really really weird love story where the characters are not necessarily likable, even though they are like two of the most gorgeous people you've ever seen in your entire life. It asks the viewer to wrestle with the idea of two young people who are finding their way together, but also contrast that with the fact that they do horrible things. They are killers. To use cannibalism was difficult for a lot of audiences. I think that a lot of people refer to the movie as like the cannibalism movie in like a pejorative way, which was also kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference to Armie Hammer's controversy. If you know, you know. If you don't know, like, babe, maybe it's better that way. Like, yuck. It was an odd film for audiences, not entirely fitting into either one's category. That's why I like the film so much. It feels like a movie that's like just right for me. Just right for like a little weirdo, you know? It's a sentimental movie, a romantic movie, but it's also for people who have given up on the possibility of ever finding love. At the end of the movie, Sully finds Maureen and Lee and sneaks into their apartment. Lee wrestles with Sully and ends up killing him, but not before Sully mortally wounds Lee. It is Lee's last wish that Maureen eats him, bones and all, and she complies. Maureen is left alone, something that she was running from the entire movie. Maureen wanted to find love, to find companionship, to find camaraderie, and at the end of the movie, she has no one. We're not explicitly told the meaning of bones and all, like the literal sense of bones and all in the movie. Like, are they literally eating the bones of, like, okay, I get it, like, you know, flesh, okay, I'm with you, okay, don't judge me, but you know, eyes, tongue, okay, listen, yeah, okay, I got you, but like the bones? The bones? The bone? Are these people actually consuming a human being entirely? Or does it mean something else? What does it mean to allow another person to consume you? To allow someone essentially to make you disappear? Guadagnino said, "The other thing is the legacy of what we leave behind us when we disappear, and most importantly, when we are made to disappear by people who are destroying our bodies." I was really interested and invested in the impossibility that they were facing and how they were trying to escape from it. In that case, we can answer with E.M. Forrester's glorious line, "Can the leopard change its spots?" And at the same time, I was more interested in making myself, and hopefully the audience, think, what is left when we don't exist anymore? I've been thinking about this a lot. Recently, a person who was very important to me passed away. And I was thinking about the fact that I don't have their physical body in my life anymore. When a person dies, where do they go? What happens to them? I'd like to think that they're inside of us. They exist through us forever. And how vulnerable is it to ask somebody to let them live in you forever? What happens when no one consumes us? Are we just forgotten? These are the questions that Bones and All ask. I don't really have the answers. The intimacy of being eaten, the compassion of consumption. In the words of poet Nally Diaz, "I confuse instinct for desire. Isn't bite also touch?" I love the fact that this movie is asking questions more so than it's answering questions. I feel like for a lot of people, they want hard answers and they want something to sort of like be neatly wrapped up at the end of a movie. But this movie is not that kind of a movie. It's really supposed to get you to like feel it, feel the overwhelming crush of loneliness at the end of the movie. Just me at the end of the movie just crying and just rubbing my hands together like a little fly, like a little weirdo. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd love to know what you guys think about Bones and All. Have you seen the movie? Will you see the movie? Did this change your mind? Are you intrigued with this? And would you let me eat you? Bones and All. Love to know. I wanted to put out this video before Valentine's Day, the worst time of year. I hate Valentine's Day. I've never had a Valentine ever in my life. And I probably never will. I just wanted to say that I'm so grateful for everybody who is subscribed and who is watching this video right now. I could not be, you guys are kind of sort of like, not to be weird, but like kind of the best thing that's happening in my life right now is like the fact that people are watching these videos that I'm making. So I'm very appreciative. Like I said, I don't have a Valentine, but if you would, maybe like you guys can be my Valentine. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just wanted to say that I'm teaching classes again in Seattle, and you can take these classes in person if you live near the Seattle area, but also if you want to, you can watch them online as well. If you go to sif.net or check the link that I put down below, you can see the first movie that I will be screening and teaching a class on is 1988's Akira, and I cannot wait to talk about that. If you want $5 off of tickets, you can put Von Ghoul 5 and you can get $5 off a ticket to see one of my classes. Like I said, you can watch it in person, but you can also watch it online as well, so you don't have to be in Seattle for that. But if you are in the Seattle area, we will also be showing Akira in person, the film, which is so cool because I've never seen Akira like on a big screen before, so I'm betting it's going to be crazy. The next classes that I have coming up are going to be Ghost in the Shell and Metropolis. I don't know exactly the dates, but I will let you guys know as soon as I know. I really appreciate this. Take care of yourself, be kind to other people, and remember, the monsters, they're always closer than you think. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Wait a second. Where is she? Bye. Say bye, Pie. Say bye. Bye.